The Island of Dolls is allegedly one of the most haunted locations on the planet. A little over half a century ago, a man named Julián Santana Barrera began living on what would one day be known as the Island of Dolls to live as a recluse. And just why he went to the island is up for debate, but most believe that he abandoned his family, his wife and child. Early on in his self-imposed isolation, he discovered the corpse of a young drowned girl, as well as a doll floating along in a canal. In an alternative version of the story, the doll was never there at the beginning but was placed there later, either at the request of the girl's spirit or on his own, doing so in his own way to help the girl fight evil spirits in the afterlife. In all versions of the story, though, he buried the body and told people of the incident, but nobody knew who the child was or where she came from. Paranormal activity on the island began soon after. After hanging a doll on a tree, Barrera began to periodically hear the girl's disembodied screams and footsteps at nighttime. The haunting experiences compelled Barrera to find other dolls and hang them up in the trees as well. The more dolls he put in the trees, the less terrifying the paranormal activity became. But it was apparent to Barrera he was now haunted. Not only this, but the dolls seemed to become possessed by the little girl or possibly other spirits as well. As time would pass, the number of dolls steadily increased. The passage of time and the elements made all the dolls' appearance become very creepy and decayed. The soulless eyes of the dolls are said to follow visitors as they walk by. The dolls' heads have been reported to jerk or move suddenly, and they never seem to be in the same position they were last seen in. For over 50 years, Barrera added dolls to the island's collection, so it's become literally a massive horde of creepy dolls infesting the island. All those years, Barrera would hear screams, laughs, and whispers of not just one young girl, but many voices. Somehow other restless spirits had been attracted to the island other than the drowned young girl. EVPs are common there. Video footage has even been taken of dolls moving on their own. The dolls can be seen all throughout the island, propped up on fences, posts, dangling at their neck from trees, with many bodiless or headless with missing limbs. Visitors to the Island of Dolls say it always feels like someone is watching you, and they can't accurately describe the feeling when standing in the middle of all the dolls. But it's always said to be an otherworldly and unnerving experience, to say the least. Canal neighbors thought Barrera to be an eccentric recluse, and for many years, investigators and the curious have tried to figure out just why this solitary farmer had such an obsession for collecting dolls. Explanations range from psychological to the paranormal, and some say that Barrera was suffering from the same mental affliction that hoarders and shut-ins suffer from today. An obsession to collect takes over to fill the voids left in other areas of one's life. Perhaps Barrera felt some degree of guilt for abandoning his family and would not psychologically abandon the drowned little girl who was a mental stand-in for his own daughter. Perhaps with all that time spent alone, he needed to see faces and representations of human beings around him to feel whole. There's also those who claim that he was possessed himself, and it is this possession that led him to be compelled to collect hundreds of dolls. Barrera would eventually build a shrine to the first doll, and the shrine has an altar complete with candles and a small table with a bowl for monetary donations. And some visitors feel the need to light a candle here, make a contribution, or respectfully leave something behind so as to honor the spirit of the young girl and any other spirits that may exist on the island. Some visitors to the island who say that they possess sensitive abilities claim that the dolls hold negative energy. Each and every single one of the dolls was once loved by a child, The hundreds of dolls on the island have borne witness to great joy and great tragedy, from happy and festive times to violently abusive domestic situations. And though just what happened to cause the fate of the original young girl who was found dead, this may be somewhat of a hint as to what killed her. The Island of Dolls has been in the middle of a lake for over 1,000 years. It was made into a farm by the ancient Aztecs, known worshippers of gods who demanded human sacrifice. And it's believed that the desires of these gods led to atrocities on the island long before the Europeans ever invaded the lands of the Mexicans. And this blood spill basically cursed it and filled it with negative entities of the Aztec spirit world. The little girl that drowned in the canal could have been tricked into drowning herself by malevolent forces stagnating on the island. And the voices Barrera heard could possibly never have been the little girls in the first place. Barrera claimed that voices whispered to him to go into the water where he had found the drowned girl's body years earlier and join her. His nephew would always remind him to ignore the voices calling him to his demise, but his nephew wasn't always around. In occult lore, it's often unwise to give entities a face to inhabit, like masks or dolls. Barrera could have unwittingly been adding to these entities' ability to manifest themselves on the island, the drowned little girl being merely a ploy all along. Or these voices calling Barrera into the water could have also called the little girl into the water, because one day, Barrera's body was found floating along in the canal just like the little girl he found years earlier. Barrera had been driven totally insane in his later years. Many had feared for the aging man on the Island of Dolls, and it turned out that their worries were justified, because he eventually gave in to the whispers urging him into the water.